Hello everyone, this is Level With Me. This is my show where I play through games and talk about what I think is going on in the level design. And this week I thought I was going to do some 7-day FPS, but I haven't finished my 7-day FPS game, unfortunately. And also other people haven't either, so I'm gonna maybe wait. Maybe next week we'll play some 7-day FPS. But for now I thought we would maybe teach some of the controversy, so to speak, and play some of Return of the Obra Dinn, which is a pretty highly critically regarded great game, first-person game. It's like a mystery insurance murder mystery on a ship. If you haven't heard about it yet, it's by the same developer as Papers, Please, Lucas Pope. And this game's been in development for a long time, I think. So I've actually already finished it and played it, but I'm gonna start a new game because I think the level design in this game is really interesting to talk about. So let's go into it. And hopefully there's not too many compression artifacts or too much awful stuff happening on the stream. We'll see how that goes. So, you know, Obra Dinn is kind of in, situating itself in this very, literary tradition, I think, where it's talking a lot about, it's, kind of like, Billy Budd. It's kind of in the tradition, or like Moby Dick, in the tradition of, a lot of these, big, epic novel kind of things. So that's the mode it's operating in. Very interesting. Also, the writing in this game is just really good.
Not many
really
for
well
that
done.
Job. Seems a bit late if you ask.
I didn't.
What's in the box?
I don't know.
Oh, it's a woman's
Talk in a
voice.
few minutes.
I never knew the player character was a woman. That's cool.
Carefully.
I don't know why I didn't notice that before. That's interesting. Anyway, Obra Dinn is in a very distinctive graphic style like this, where makes use of a lot of this special dithering technique that Lucas Pope has documented in exhausting detail on the TIG Source forum. So just search Obra Dinn TIG Source and you'll come up with this epic development diary thread where Lucas Pope talks about all the different dithering algorithms he's used. So very fascinating. Let's climb up and see what's going on. And this is the top deck of the ship. Already, there's just so much interesting environment art and level design stuff going on here, I think. First of all, it's just super dense. All the details here are just super dense in this way that I associate more with expensive AAA productions, quite frankly. Just notice just each of these little planks of wood was hand placed there, right? Also, just all the subtle movement and animation going on right now. Each of these ropes is just swaying slightly in the distance. You also see... What else is swaying? Also, the boat is just rocking. Or maybe the boat isn't rocking so much as maybe the skybox is rocking. I wonder how they did the rocking effect here, because it's very subtle. I'm sure we've all played first-person games where the head bob or walking movement is just way too much sometimes. So it's cool that there's a rocking moment here where it's kind of a ship feeling, but not too exaggerated where you're gonna feel kind of seasick. That would be bad. As we walk around, it's just really just meticulous research here. I don't know that much about ships, so you'll have to forgive me, but this seems like a pretty accurate, well-rendered ship. just the density of all the cables and ropes here just is really amazing. Let's see, what else is going on here? As we walk around here, I really like the effect on these wood planks here. It's a very abstract approach to wood grain where it's just dots and stuff. I wonder what the texture actually looks like here, or if this is normal mapped, but then in the dithering full screen shader it comes out as dots, or did he actually go into Photoshop and like stipple all these little dots everywhere? Yeah, I wonder what the approach to that was. Let's see, what else is going on here? Oh, there's a nice little bell. Too bad you can't ring anything. Maybe that's probably one of the few criticisms you can make of Obra Dinn, which is otherwise a like really fascinating game that I really love playing, but it renders this really dense, really interesting environment full of all these details everywhere. But normally when we see dense environments like this in video games, we expect everything to be really interactive, right? You play a Deus Ex game and you can go in the bathroom and flush a toilet or take a shower or whatever, or flick the light switch or something. And Obra Dinn is actually characterized by a total lack of interaction. You can't really... I can't ring this bell, I can't speak into this little speaking hole or ventilation pipe or whatever, bilge pump or whatever that is. I can't like touch these ropes. Really the only time you see any kind of interaction in Obra Dinn is when you're inspecting stuff, and when you use doors, your hand pops out and then you can actually open up that up. But you can't really open up cabinets or open up drawers, which is really unusual. That's kind of going against a big trend in these kinds of first-person... I wouldn't say walking simulator. I wouldn't say this is in the walking simulator tradition necessarily, but this is going against maybe like an immersive simulation tradition. Oh.
It's too heavy!
So there you can see that was like a timed trigger, or not necessarily a timed trigger, more a positional trigger, right? Because I was walking over here and I was just looking at all these ropes and then he didn't say anything. But as soon as I walked over to this side of the ship and maybe noticed this dead body with all the flies there, the fly particles also help attract our attention to this dead, decomposing corpse here. Then maybe there's like a 5 or 10 second delay, and then that guy who took us on the boat over there
heavy! Lift it yourself!
is repeating all his nags. So, okay, let's go over there. He's not going to leave us alone. Better go over there. I'm not saying Obra Dinn would have been good if it let you open up every locker and opened every cupboard, but it's certainly not the common kind of thing. It's not the obvious thing to do. If I was making a game like this, I would have felt really pressured to make every cabinet interactive.
It's too heavy. Take it yourself or open it here.
It's too heavy. Okay, I got it. The reason I would put Obra Dinn in an immersive tradition is because it's so much about readables. It's, there's a lot of argument, is the immersive sim dead, blah, blah, blah. And you can argue that a lot of modern games have just been taking pieces of the immersive sim and then making whole games around that. And in a sense, this is a game about looking at stuff, about audio diary flashbacks, about the ghost scenes in Thief or System Shock, but also about readables. And this is readables on steroids. This is an entire game about readables and reading things, where the entire game is about reading this hardcore book and filling it in. Anyway, I think most players would do, they're flipping through this book and notice most of it is empty, and that's kind of fascinating. It's really satisfying. The page feel on this is really good too. Like the animations on the page, and then the dithering, even the shadows on the page as you're flipping them, is just really satisfying. Really well done. But most of the book is empty because most of this game is about filling in this book. And to fill in the book, you have to use this death compass. Memento mortem. Remember death. So I got everything I need. Just gonna walk up here then. So I'm gonna check the chat. The Obra Dinn window is actually way too big. I can't actually read the chat right now. Okay, people just saying, oh, hello, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Nice. Let's keep going. So, I just got the book and compass. Now I can finally walk over. And find out what that watch does.
Captain,
Or the compass.
open the
Whatever
door.
it is.
Kick it in. Ah! Lest we break it down and take more than those shells.
You bastards may take exactly what I give you!
So that's a really beautiful moment. So first of all, the scripted sequence sets up where we wake up right when he's shooting it, but he's shooting us in the past, so it's okay. And then maybe most players' inclination will be to turn around behind them and see, oh my god, look, this guy's totally getting shot. It looks like Lucas Pope like sculpted the blood. That's kind of intense. That's what's also nice about having this dithering two-color effect here. Very graphic effects, like a lot of blood and gore in this game, by the way, are kind of dulled a little bit because it's not bright red in our face, bright red blood and stuff. It feels more like historical and clinical, or like an illustration in a book, in an old-timey book we're reading. And now the timer ran out on that cutscene. And now the book is going to take us through this whole thing, starting at the end. Very interesting plotting here. And the dissolve effect here is also just really gorgeous. And then we have to go here. Who is this and how did they die? I think I actually know from past playthroughs who this actually is. I mean, I'll try not to spoil things. I'll just play this as like you might normally play it. So first, when you're playing this game, you have to usually you're just gonna fill in their cause of death. This person got shot, or did they get speared or strangled or torn apart or axed or burned or frozen to death? A lot of different ways to die, it turns out. This person clearly got shot by a gun though, and they got shot with a gun by the captain because he's clearly shouting, "Captain, open the door," and then the captain shot him. So it's pretty clear that person in there is the captain. And the captain is kind of this central figure that shows up throughout the game. So it's very good that the first person you can actually identify here is the captain. Let's see here. What else are we doing? The other reason why we might place Return of the Obra Dinn in an immersive tradition is because of this excellent in-world map. Like, look at all this stuff, where it actually seems very like technical, very accurate, showing us the exact floor plan of everything. Like if you showed me a drawing of a ship, I would assume it would look basically like this. It feels very like in-world and diegetic, and it also just has all these labels for all these like nautical ship words that I don't even know. So here's the main deck. You know, I know that word, but like a bosun, I didn't know what a bosun was before I played this game. Or like a purser or an orlop deck. What the heck is that? So this is the map, also teaching us about the world more. And I wish games did this more. I'm playing that Red Dead Redemption cowboy game right now, and the map in that is just like a very typical video game open world mini map. I wish maps were more confusing, I guess, in games, because when they're more confusing, or when the map in itself is its own puzzle, I think that makes navigating the world so much more interesting. So every mystery in the book involves finding out who was shot by whom. You can review the transcript of the dialogue of that cutscene. You can see where they were shot exactly. That's pretty important, maybe more near the end of the game where you're like wrapping up all these loose ends. And then there's also a big drawing where you're identifying them from this big mural right here. And you'll notice the tutorial talked about how if it's a blurry face, you shouldn't be able to identify them really, but if it's a sharp face, you can identify them. So here's the game telling me you totally can identify them because this portrait was sharpened right there. So let's go ahead and just identify this person. Yeah, I kind of wish I could skip the tutorial here, but I guess it's useful so that you know what's actually happening here. So I'll just put the captain here. You can also tell he's the captain just because he's wearing like a captain hat and stuff. So I also love the sound design here. Everything's like echoing and stuff. The music's very much like, if you like the music and sound design in this game, I recommend watching a Stanley Kubrick film called Barry Lyndon. Barry Lyndon just has the soundtrack is basically just this over and over and over. It's also a film that was filmed only with natural or light or candlelight, which is just really interesting. You should watch that movie if you like this. It's not about sailing or anything, but it's like in terms of mood and stuff, it's very much kind of like this game. But I just love the abstraction of this environment too. Just notice how the boat fades away like this. Really gorgeous, like vanishing gradient right here. It's just really, really well done. Really good abstraction here where it's only the part of the ship that we care about in this flashback. And then if we want to leave the flashback, we'll just take this magic portal here. Gorgeous effect here as well. I love it. Where it's just this like portal leading to nowhere. But before we take that portal, let's just walk around. I mean, this is a readable game in steroids, but it's also a walking simulator in steroids, because this is really weaponizing the idea that you should walk around a world and look at it. The gameplay is walking around and noticing things. So here's this guy with a knife. And if we see this guy later, then maybe that means something. I don't know. Can also open doors. Obra Dinn does an interesting thing with how they signal certain open doors and closed doors. The keyhole will be an X if you cannot open the door. Also, your hand won't reach out to grab it. So that's a pretty elegant solution, I think, to the locked door problem, where often in these first-person games we don't know which doors are openable or not openable. The lighting here is also really interesting. Here, it's mostly contrast matters a lot here. So when you have a light source like this, leading into a lot of white space right here, or negative space right here, it matters a lot and it helps draws our eye. Also, it's realistic that this little cabin area underneath would have these lanterns lit up. see if we keep walking over here. Oh, we can't keep walking. I guess we're blocked. Oh well. And then flash forward to the present day where we're just looking at this dead body reliving everything with this magic watch. Let's keep going over here. Ooh, one really nice thing this game does, when it opens up a door for progress or something, it makes that door really fuzzy. And it plays with... This game is just so textural, I think. Which is just really... like, it only has 2 colors, but it's still... It plays with texture and feeling so much. It's really impressive. Let's see, over here. Oh. No, he's not. Sorry. Sorry, someone knocking on my door. Let's go over in here. I wish more games played with, like, fuzziness like this. This is so great. Keep going here. Here we see another dead body, and then another dead body. And we go over here, where we're at the aft side of this ship. Nothing really. But here we see a lot more tutorial stuff. It's a little bit confusing here how the light here is not... Oh. That's a weird bug. Where it unloads these sails up here. I guess that's how rare people look up, huh? I guess most playtesters wouldn't catch this. Oh, that's really weird. But you know, this is about visibility culling, where obviously when we're inside this ship, they should turn off outer elements to ease the rendering cost. The lighting here is interesting because the light being given off right here, it looks like it's being given off from this skylight here, but the light here, it's in this very round shape, which I would not associate with this very rectangular, angular shape right here. So that's a little bit strange. That seems a little bit rushed. Or maybe they tried it before and it looked bad. I don't know. But it's kind of strange how the light fall off is so round and smooth here. But the light is also meant to draw our attention to this dead body, and that we should click on this dead body first. So let's do that.
Where are they? Must be in here someplace.
They're at the bottom of the sea.
That's a lie.
Oh gosh. So here we can see this person died clearly via a knife. They got stabbed or slashed with a knife. Their throat got slit. And here we can see the dead body here from earlier. So now we know this happened after this thing. So a lot of interesting, like, deductive gameplay stuff going on. What else is going on here? A lot of environmental storytelling. This flipped over table here. The gun. Obviously the captain has dropped his gun right there. So this is a readable game. This is a game about walking around and noticing things. And this is also a game about environmental storytelling. And really, like, weaponizing that into this huge, complicated mechanic. The portrait is still blurry, so that's the game telling you, don't worry about him, don't try to identify him. Which is a pretty elegant thing to do. I feel like video games don't usually do this, where they're saying, don't worry about it, come back to this later. So the idea of having a sharp image versus a blurry image seems like a very elegant signaling UX thing to the player. This person was clearly This is maybe one other issue that I had with Obra Dinn, where when you're inputting into how people like died in this game, sometimes it's not really clear how they died. And that's okay. That's kind of part of the game, and that's kind of fun and interesting. Sometimes it is clear how they died, though, and you're not really sure how to input this into the book in a way that the book will like. So sometimes I'm like saying, oh, well, he was slashed at, his throat got slit, but where's that? It looks like there's no slit option. It looks like, I guess they got knifed. I guess that was a knife, and they got knifed by the captain, clearly. But sometimes it's like, oh, did this person like burn to death, or was this person more like stabbed or something? And maybe the game elegantly solves this by allowing for multiple correct answers, maybe. So maybe that's okay. Maybe the game actually is behind the scenes already solving for that. But I felt like there were some where I wasn't really sure what the book wanted me to say, and that was a little bit annoying. That was more trial and error. And then here we have the transcript. Notice a very cheeky attribution here. This person, it doesn't list their name here. It just has an X for signaling which lines they said when they died. Okay, let's get out of here. Drop the gun here. This guy died. Looks like the captain just got stabbed by this spear. So we'll want to keep a lookout on this captain. Now, this is a really nice touch. When you're standing here and you're looking through the windows, you can actually see a little shape right through the window. And that's kind of gorgeous. That's kind of great. Where we can see the guy from earlier is jumping down to try to sneak up on the captain. And you notice that because the game has set up that sight line with how you're walking, right? First we walk through here, then we walk here, then we look at the captain, then we look up, and already we're kind of set up to notice this detail right here. They could have enlarged the window maybe, or drawn more attention to it, but as it is, I think that's just a really nice thing for the people who do notice it. Let's see, we're pretty much done here, I think. Another elegant thing the game does, normally this portal is closed if you have something to do inside the flashback, but if you've exhausted everything in the flashback, this magic portal is open for you to walk into. So that's another elegant thing that I appreciated. Okay, so we just discovered that body. I wonder what this body is about then. So let's go into this one. This also reminds me of a old Bungie game called Pathways into Darkness, where you could talk to dead bodies and old bodies, and like corpses and stuff, to talk about how they died. This is kind of like almost a remake of that in a sense. Here the captain took the spear from this dead guy, right? And there's the knife the captain dropped to kill that guy. And now the captain has the spear and is totally just going to town on that guy's noggin. But it looks like the guy already got to stab the captain. There you can see the wound from before still bleeding, and also that knife wound there. But the scene is still very much the same. The body is still there. That's still there. That's still there. And then when you walk over into here, you see, oh, there's another dead body right here. Interesting. And when you zoom in, it'll show you that character that you're looking at. That transition when you're looking at bodies and then it fades in that image from your book is just so... it's so great. So who is this? How'd they die? At this point in the book, in the game, we still don't know who this is. But this person clearly got bludgeoned, or clubbed, or speared. That person was using a spear, but they weren't speared. They were more clubbed, or were they crushed with the spear? I think they were. I guess that counts as being clubbed. I guess. And then when we're done with that, we can go back in the flashback. So this is still very much in a tutorial mode of level design. It's a pretty small space to explore here. Later in the game, you have to explore like 4 like different decks, and it gets really complicated to keep track of where and what happened. But here it's in a very linear order, where this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then when we walk into here we'll find out this all this stuff happened too. So the level design and the pacing here is just really, I think, well done, really well paced. Feels like they play tested a lot, thought about what the player would be thinking about at each point, and then they're like breadcrumbing us very well here. And here's we also see why that door was locked from the outside. Over here you might remember that door here had an X. It's because we had to go around, so that's a gate. And also you could also argue that this door was maybe like blocked by the chair or something, I don't know. If we keep walking around, I think here most players wouldn't look at this one. I think most players would look at this body in the bed, just because that's the body we saw from last time, from the flashback. Also, if you're kind of smart, you would probably guess that this person is the captain because of they're the last body that was here, so it has to be the captain basically. But I think I'm just gonna enter this flashback, and then we'll probably stop soon after this one. And here I think it's the first really big wow moment of the entire game, where we're like, oh, why was this person in bed? I guess they were like dying of sickness. And then you're launched into this really gorgeous scene. The art in this game is like stunning and amazing, and it's only 2 colors. But here we see the woman who was in bed got hit by this falling pole or falling mast, being swung around by this giant kraken like octopus monster attacking the entire ship, and it's totally unexpected. Up until now, the game has played it pretty straight, played it pretty historical and realistic, and then suddenly there's a giant monster, all these suspended particles floating in the air. We also expect to be brought back to that ship from before, to that room in before, in front of the bed, but instead we're teleported outside onto the main deck when all this chaos is happening, and there's just, the game overwhelms you suddenly with like 20 different characters. Really amazing moment. I think that's really, really well paced. I think games also, in addition to not confusing us enough, games don't overwhelm us enough sometimes either. We're always concerned with making sure everything is so readable and comprehensible and like legible to players that sometimes we should just be like, boom, here's 20 things of information and you need to try to figure out all this stuff now. And during BioShock Infinite, they came up with this term called like player RAM, like to describe, to use like a computer memory metaphor for how much information a player is supposed to retain while they're playing a game. And I think that moment really overloads most of the RAM in most players' brains. It's so much to take in. This is also another great moment in the game where this is maybe the first genuine mystery of the game where you kind of have to think about this a little bit. The game has the portrait being really sharp, so that's the game telling you that you can find out who this is. You should be able to know who this is. So this is maybe the first time where you have to actually piece through here and be like, Martin, where's the captain? And you're like, oh wait, so she was talking to someone named Martin. I guess Martin was the guy in front of her, maybe? So then you make a note to yourself, okay, I should go back and when I'm done with this, I should identify that guy as Martin. Have you lost your mind? Get back inside. I want my husband. Where is he? He's below deck. Come here. So I want my husband. So you have to guess, okay, who was the husband here? So then you're going to be looking through this whole name roster here, and you're like, okay, who has maybe the same last name here? So there's Robert Whittrell, William Hoskett. So you're just maybe looking, okay, married people, especially in this time, usually keep names here, take on names. So you say, oh wait, this person also has the same last name as this person, and they also have a feminine sounding name. So I guess she has to be Abigail Hoskett Whittrell. God, the names in this game are also really, really good. And she obviously got smashed? Crushed, I guess. Crushed by some rigging. And now the game is teasing me. This may or may not be correct. It's correct though. I'm good at this. I'm the best detective ever. And then we also see the transcript and all that, and where the corpse was, and we see she died maybe here, but she was taken there post-mortem. So then we come back here. This guy's name is Martin, but we'll come back to that later, I guess. But just admire this gorgeous scene. I wonder how Lucas Pope did all these particles. Like, I wonder if these are all hand modeled and hand placed, or I wonder if it was like a particle simulation and then it's just frozen there. It seems so meticulous, like he went in with the paintbrush and like dabbed everything there. Oh, there's another mechanic in the game where sometimes in a flashback you do this thing, and when you do this thing, it will lead you to another dead body in that flashback. And then you have to follow this. If you remember a 90s children's television show called Ghost Rider, this is very evocative of Ghost Rider, like following this weird inky blob over here. But now it creates a new fuzzy body suspended from the past for us to inspect, and then we can go into that flashback. So it's almost like a hypertext structure or like a Wikipedia hole. It's a Wikipedia simulator, really, where we're just going into one article and then clicking on this link to go in this other article, and it's just really, really fascinating, I think. The navigation in this game, amazing. And now we see how this person died. This person is missing their torso, I guess. So looks like they got ripped apart. And now we can see what was happening before they got ripped apart. We're meeting like 5 or 6 more characters. It's not as overwhelming as that first flashback, but it's still kind of a lot. But just look at all these different people here. And look, there's another dead person we should look at later, maybe. We've talked about before how some of the other games, how a lot of immersive sims often have this mission where you like travel in like parallel dimensions, like time travel to go visit the same location in the future or the past. This is also that immersive sim mechanic multiplied by 1,000,000, where we're going to be looking into like 60 different flashbacks. And this is also the tutorial and level design pacing us. Here, this person has 2 triangles, which indicates they're going to be a little bit more difficult for you to figure out who they are. But it's possible. And looks like they didn't say anything, they just got ripped apart. But here, the gameplay is more about looking at their appearance and judging them, which is a little bit problematic, maybe. But you'd scroll down and be like, okay, this person they look like some kind of pirate and they have very distinctive tattoos. So you'd look through here and you'd be like, okay, well, based on all these places and their origin, what description does this person fit? So you'd be looking around, you'd be like, oh, okay, was this person an English artist? No, probably not. Was this person from India? If you don't know much about India, you might think they're from India. Or Formosa, you might not even be familiar with what Formosa is. Formosa was I think a Portuguese word for Taiwan back in the day. Now we just call Taiwan. So now you're just flipping through and being like, oh, what description does this match? I'll leave that to you to figure out in your own playthrough. I won't ruin the mystery, but pretty interesting. And then you see, oh, 12 people were here. I didn't even count 12 people in that scene. God, that's amazing. Most games don't even have 60 different named NPCs, so this is also like an RPG type game as well, or like a Stardew Valley kind of thing. A Stardew Valley where everyone is dead and you have to find out how they killed each other. The lighting here is also just really nice. Placing this light source down here really low helps indicate a bunch of a very like chaotic feel to this. When you also place a light source really low, below like head height, that also lights people from below, and that's like a spooky Halloween effect as well to the lighting. But the way people are lit is just so peculiar. Like it doesn't... Everything just seems so hand-drawn and hand-done. Like, the light here doesn't seem to be casting a light on this tentacle, like on this weird cut-off dismembered tentacle, for instance, right? So everything has just been hand-shaded. Light is super selective. This person probably had to Lucas Pope probably had to hack into a lot of Unity shaders and Unity's lighting system to get light to act so selectively like this. But gosh, it's so meticulous and stuff. It's so amazing. Oh, and then over there's another dead body. I'll just try to get through this a little bit. So that we can get back to the ship, do some closing thoughts, and then that's probably it for today, unfortunately. So I have to advise some students, so unfortunately I have to cut today's stream a little bit short. So if we keep following this, there we see the dead body that we saw from the flashback, and we could also go into that flashback and see how that person died and so on. But some closing thoughts on Obra Dinn. I'm not sure if I'll play this for another week. I just kind of wanted to talk about some of this ship stuff, but I don't want to ruin it either. You all should definitely check out that dev thread on TIG Source, and you should all definitely play it for yourself. This is definitely a game that, if you watch too much of it, it does spoil a lot of that experience. Oh god, look at all these ropes! Oh my god, he hand modeled all these ropes. Oh my god. Every rope is accounted for. Everything's flapping in the wind, just so subtly. The attention to detail here, I can't imagine. It's absurd. Yeah, I think maybe we'll just leave it here for now, I guess. Maybe we'll return to this in next week, because eventually it'll unlock some of the lower deck, and the lower deck is really interesting to talk about. And then maybe I'll just do 2 weeks of Obra Dinn, because I don't want to show you the whole game and ruin it for you. And God, just look at the particle. Look at that. Like, look at the moonlight. And the skybox in this game is so good. I wonder what that is, though. I don't know what that sparkling thing in the ocean is. Oh, well. In the meantime, thanks for checking it out. Thanks for watching the stream with me today. Next week, yeah, we'll either continue with Obra Dinn or maybe check out the 7-day FPS games. If enough 7-day FPS games have finally gotten their shit together and actually released their games, like me, myself included. Thanks for tuning in, though, and hopefully, yeah, we'll see what happens next week. Anyway, bye. Have a good one.